Hey guys and girls, Bored Now back with you. On this video I will be talking about Stranger Things for episode 7, chapter 7 if you will. It is called The Massacre at Hawkins' Lab. Now I'm going to say full spoilers, although it seems pretty pointless with this one because I'm guessing by now everyone who's going to watch this episode has seen it. More or less, there's maybe a few out there who haven't, but more or less I'd say pretty much everyone who listens to this video have probably already seen the episode. So it has been a while. I'm sorry for the delay in this one. I've been having computer problems and there's probably other reasons, life stuff that's got in the way a bit, but finally I'm here. This is of course the mid-season finale, and the good news about that is you will be getting my reviews of episodes 8 and 9 very quickly as they're coming out this week. So that's one bit of good news, but really great mid-season finale, end of volume 1. And I'm going to say it really, then episodes 4 and 7 of season 4 have been two of my favourite episodes of the whole show. So that really says something. And this one really gets to it's not really the mid-season point, but the end of volume 1 with one hell of a bang. Everything is very well handled. So I'll start off with Steve and his being put in jeopardy, being dragged down by the creatures, and this whole thing looks so post-apocalyptic and it's so well shot. These creatures, the effects on them, you can see how it's been money very well spent, but just the whole vibe of this scene with the gang. So you've got Nancy, who's notably the first one to dive in, as Eddie points out to Steve later on. Nancy, Robin, and then eventually Eddie dives in as well, because according to him later he didn't want to be shamed by the girls and left out. So they all dive in to help him, and it's just such a well directed scene, and the way it looks so good with these I think it being underwater makes it look really good anyway, but then you get certain little things like the cracks in the floor. It's all very gothic looking down there, and these creatures are like generally quite sort of freakish, and just the way that the action is shot and the back and forth. As I said at the end of the last episode, they were like smothering Steve with the tentacles, and you've got genuine jeopardy. I mean, this season has done a great job of like creating stakes, and they work as a gang. That's the crucial point. They work as a gang to eventually save him, but it's very dicey for a while. Eddie has quite a big moment because he gets to take one of the creatures out. He's a character who has definitely grown on me. I wasn't quite sure about Eddie at first, but he's grown on me over the course of this season. And Steve notably gets the final one. He takes the final one out, which is a good character moment for him. And they drag him back to the shore. Now, there could still be like jeopardy in the future for Steve, because they mentioned then he might have some after effects of being attacked by these things, like he might have some sort of a virus that's attached itself to him. So I think there's definitely question marks in the future whether Steve will survive, and I know there's a lot of predictions online about that, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But we definitely get some more stancy action in this episode with the ship. We get the scene where Eddie, of course, does that thing which my regular partner Rachel really hates, but he suggests to Steve then that girl obviously is still in love, or loves you at least, not still in love, but she has feelings for him again, according to Eddie. So like pushing him, says that is the sign of someone who loves you. And of course in this case at least Eddie was around to see it. He did actually see the act of Nancy putting it on the line to save Steve, so it's definitely certain things in that, but we'll see how that all plays out. I'm still predicting a swerve because I think Nancy and Robin might end up together. I am still shipping that quite a bit, but there's certain things with Steve and Nancy, like Nancy attending to his wounds, but you get this really satisfying, like, coming together of these two groups where they've been separated because, of course, like Dustin, Lucas, and Max were on the bank, like, waiting for them. And then the authorities shown up because the whole town are out because of this thing escalating. And the authorities come, the sheriff comes and takes them back to like their house, and they start questioning them about what exactly happened. And it's obviously an interesting point of this. Then they might be suspected in all this. There's still question marks hanging over them. Not quite as much as Eddie, but still there are question marks. So it makes you wonder where they might go with that. But obviously they're not going to give up any information easily, so they sort of stay tight-lipped. And there's just some fun little scenes around the house, actually, with this sort of gang. And it's fun that they slowly, like, talk Erica into, like, helping them out and going along. And this maybe confirms that she is, like, legitimately part of the gang and has her sort of nerd credentials intact. But there's just nice little stuff of them sneaking about, them, like, feeding information to Erica and her sort of sneaking out. But and there's a real sort of like E.T. style moment or Goonies moment, whichever you want to put it, where they do like sneak out and escape, and the parents and the adults are sort of running after them, but they can't catch them. And once again, it's just this great like charm which Stranger Things has with these characters, where they're taking the initiative, and they're not afraid to like go against like the adults' wishes, which I always like to see in this sort of thing. But once again, Dustin is a bit of a star because he actually figures out the science and the theory behind this to try and reconnect them with the other group and to figure out what exactly is going on. Because at one point, the Nancy group have this idea of going, because they're like sort of like stuck in like a version of the Upside Down, and they have this idea of actually going back to her house. And her theory is that they can look for clues there. And they start looking around, and she actually like looks at her diary, but it turns out there's nothing in the diary. They're like blank pages, and it's because without realising they've actually been sent back in time. So they've been sent to a point where the diary wasn't full with words, so there's no clues in the diary, so to speak. But Dustin comes up with this idea that there's more than one gate, and because there's these things seem connected to like people dying around the town, then if they find the right gate, if they go back to the thing that sort of started all this with, which was like Chrissy's death, if they go to her murder scene basically where she was found, then there should hopefully be a gate there. So they go there, and this is where the science comes into play as well. And I think it's Robin who says this is so trippy, and I do wonder if that's like a reference to like Pulp Fiction, her mother being in Pulp Fiction, even though it's not like her character who says that line in that film. But it does strike me that they were going for a very meta reference. But yeah, Dustin has this idea where they can like feed what was it? Oh, it was like a bedspread sort of thing, or some sort of duvet, and just use it as a rope and like feed it through the other dimensions. And this is the scene in the episode, because there's probably not that many times in Stranger Things where it goes to the surreal. I think there were some moments in season 3, but this is definitely a moment where it feels like totally surreal and trippy, because you literally have one group like on the surface, like above the Upside Down, and the other group in the Upside Down. So literally they're looking at each other like they're looking through like mirrors, but the image is reverse in the Upside Down. So it's a really fun, like playful, trippy type visual, and I think it's Erica. Erica has a good line. This like saying something like, "I've seen some messed up shit." Yeah, this is like effed up, I think she says, and I've seen some messed up shit or something like that, and she delivers it in a typical like Erica sort of fashion. So, but yeah, Dustin has this idea to like sort of thread like a rope this bedsheet through, and they do it like it twists around like a rope, right? It's a really great idea, a great visual for the episode. And once again, just the pacing of this scene and the tension around it. Are they all going to make it through? The whole tension is there. So the first couple make it through. I think Robin and Steve go first. And I think this is where they're sort of saying, you have the bit from the trailer with Nancy and Steve. It's like, here goes nothing sort of thing. I think that's the moment. And wouldn't you know it, one doesn't make it through, and that is Nancy. She actually gets captured by Vecna on the way through, or the curse by Vecna, and this sets up like the end of the episode, this really dramatic ending where we cut between the two scenes and we get a big reveal of who Vecna is. So I will say the direction of this ending and the way it brings everything together, the reveal of the villain, his motivations, just everything is so well done, so on point. It just ties everything together. And once again, I can't fault the direction from the Duffer Brothers. And I think it all feels very satisfying. Whether you see it coming or not, it kind of doesn't matter. I think it's just done in such a satisfying way where everything comes together. Then it sort of feels like really neat and satisfying and dramatic, regardless of whether you sort of predicted it or not. I don't think anyone can really have any complaints with how it all works out. So I'll talk about it a bit alongside the L stuff, because we get more L stuff with this warden, this I forget the name actually, but this Audrey who's been coming to her, giving her information. And there's a scene in this where she once again gets ganged up on from the other kids, from the bullies, and she actually puts them out of commission, but only for like a day. And one of the other ones, the one who's sort of the head bully, if you like, he's like in the infirmary and resting, and this Audrey says to Elle, they're threatened by you because they know you've got more power than them. But he's only, I think it was number 4, he's only resting, but he'll be out tomorrow, and they'll come after you again. So he sort of starts suggesting to Elle, if you help me, I can help you. And it's slowly revealed that this Audrey has a past and has powers, and like Elle helps him get like the chip out of his, like, I think it's his ear or his neck or something. I think it was his neck, and that helps him like escape. But slowly it all is revealed, and it's revealed as we see things from Nancy's perspective. So it's this beautiful like two worlds colliding, and it's explained at the same time as Nancy seeing it in the, like, from her point of view, so in the past. So there's some like wonderful symmetry to it. So what's happening with Nancy is that she's been like taken back to the 1950s, isn't it, where the whole thing went down. So she goes to Victor's house, or sees Victor's house in the 1950s, and as this character is telling now this story, she starts to see what happened with Victor and his family, and she starts seeing like this, then the son who has special powers was responsible inadvertently, like he has telekinesis, but he sort of, when he heard music and couldn't control his aggression, he actually killed his mother and his sister, and went into a coma as a result. And that's why he ended up under state control, under the care of Branagh. And of course that leads to him turning out to be this character who's with Al in the institute. So this facility. So he turns out to be effectively Vecna, the curse of Vecna. So it works out that this is like Al's seeing all this in her head from the past, and it's revealed to her, like he's telling her the story as Nancy is witnessing it from her point of view. So it's revealed that he was put in the institution, and that ever since then he's felt abandoned by the world. And I think this actor does a really good job, where now I think there was no doubt he was a villain from the moment he came on screen, but he does a really good job. He's got real presence to him. And also I just think the motivation is like really interesting and meaty, even though you're not gonna go along with it and say, yeah, you were screwed, that justifies what you're doing. But I think just the whole monologue is so effective, and like his arguments is so satisfying, and the actor is so good, then you do kind of get caught up in it, even though you're definitely on the side of, no, you went too far, pal. But the whole reasoning is that he has the idea to reset the world order, like how the world works in a certain ways. It favours like certain people, and that there's certain groups, like fringe groups like him, and now who have the power to change it, but have always been like looked down upon and sort of sneered by society because of their special powers. So it's effectively using that argument of the world needs people to play God sort of thing. It's almost that kind of thing where he's almost having a go at capitalism in some ways, like through some of the dialogue and stuff. So it's interesting stuff anyway. It's quite a meaty sort of like dialogue and sort of delivery from the actor, and obviously he's like challenging her to like come with him. But the whole twist is, which I think pays off so well what we saw in episode 1 of this season, is then it was actually him and not Al who killed the other kids back in 1979, because he tried to blame it on Al, but he was actually the one who did it, and she was trying to stop him, but obviously couldn't. He actually killed the kid. So that's an important detail, because obviously I think from the writer's point of view, it's a nice little reveal and twist, but it also exonerates Al a bit from any like real responsibility, even though she feels bad for not being able to stop him. It certainly doesn't make her, so sinister as maybe we thought. But it's a tremendous reveal, and obviously Al does the right thing, and like obviously this is all happening in the past where you get like a standoff and they, a power battle, and she ends up overcoming him, and we see him like plunge into like the upside down. It's all very dramatic, and that's when he became Vecna, the curse of Vecna anyway, and that's when he started doing his work from within the upside down. So very good visual stuff, very good acting from the pair of them. Obviously Millie Bobby Brown is always great, but really satisfying stuff. I just love the way like these two stories are paralleled and how they come together, and the reveal was so satisfying. He was a great villain, and I personally didn't see it coming, although I knew that this guy was not to be trusted. I didn't really predict that he was going to turn out to be Vecna. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense, and there would be some link between the two storylines because of some of the things that we've seen in like the Hawkins plot, with what's going on with like the victims of Vecna. But also there's the double like whammy of Nancy's in trouble now. Nancy's under its fuel, and could she be in jeopardy? Obviously she is in jeopardy, but I don't know if it's that she's necessarily going to be another victim, or it's whether she just got caught trying to like come through, and she's now being made to watch this. So, but certainly she's in like a compromising position, but very satisfying stuff. I really love the way the two plots were put. Well, how they came together, how three plots came together in some ways, or certainly you had like the two groups, like the Dustin group coming together with like the Steve group, and it was so well done. So great stuff, which only leads me to talk about the Russian stuff, which once again is solid stuff and pretty enjoyable. It's obviously not as great as the stuff I've been talking about, but I think it does what it needs to do pretty well. And that stuff has definitely, it had a slow start, but it definitely has grown on me a bit. And me and Rachel have both said how much we've enjoyed the Murray-Joyce partnership. You know, never maybe expected them to work so well together, but they sort of have. They've been brilliant together. Some of the best comedic scenes have come from them. You've almost had like this cute sort of good cop, bad cop coming from them, or certainly like this opposite sort of working together type thing. And I think what I've enjoyed about the Russian stuff as it's gone on is how it's sort of turned into like this full-on like heist caper type thing, but also like an action type movie, which I don't mind, because I think it makes sense. Then you've got like this different storyline, these characters in this different location, so I don't actually mind them having a different feel to like this storyline. And once again, everything plays out really well. You have Murray and Joyce, where they've kidnapped like the other guy. I forgot his name, but the one who originally turned them in, that they've kidnapped him, and they're obviously pretending that he's like delivering like them. Well, let's say the Americans, like, as in Joyce at least, and obviously Murray, like they're pretending that Murray is the other guy, so they can get inside. And there is like this moment of tension where it's like questioned, and I really love the line about this, because I think his name's Yuri, isn't it? Where he's known as like the peanut butter smuggler, which is really funny. But they sort of get through, and obviously there's this slow burn thing as they sort of start seeing, and Joyce sees Hopper for the first time this season, where obviously him, the other guy, and a bunch of others, they've been like set up to face like the Demodog. So you get a whole full-on sort of action scene, very tense once again, where Hopper obviously had this idea to use like the flames against them and to like burn them out, as we've seen in the past. And once again, I think the creature effects are really good in this. I think it looks very convincing. The action scenes are nicely done. They're very tense, and the way things slowly come together, where Murray starts using some of his bullshit, and he slowly convinces like the guys in the control room to like open the gate, because at one point they like kidnap one of the guards and sort of use him for leverage, and they sort of in the end, things stack up against like the Russian who's like in the control room, where they sort of say there's not a lot for you to do here. There's not a lot than you can do, and at the end of the day, if we've held you at gunpoint, then yeah, you've got that as like an excuse. So like in the end, the tension builds, but they sort of get them out of there. They open the gate. Obviously, there are a bunch of people who dies, but ultimately Hopper and the other guy who he's been with survive, and they get out the gate, and Hopper and Joyce reunite for the first time this season. Reunite in general, so that's really great stuff. And as I said, I think the stuff with that plot started quite slow, and there's maybe one or two things you could cut out of it, like earlier on in the season. I remember that episode where they just got on the plane to Alaska, and I think they had 2 scenes on the plane in that episode, so one of those scenes could have gone for sure. But as it's gone on, I've loved the stuff with Murray and Joyce. I personally have enjoyed the action feel and how tense that's been, but also just some great character stuff with Hopper, as he's had this arc this season of, I think, when he tried to escape and then was captured again, being very sort of like downtrodden and at probably like the lowest point he's been at as a character on the show, where he's almost given up hope, but then actually going on this journey and having this idea and being inspired to hatch at like another escape, and once again really good payoff. So that's obviously Stranger Things for the volume 1 complete now, so it's a very good stuff. Very surprising, because I had heard of there being some mixed reviews of this when it first went up, and yeah, I think it's taken everyone by surprise, because even people who may have loved Stranger Things in the past, I think even people who got a bit fatigued after season 1, certainly after season 2, like, I think they've come back and said, oh, this has recaptured a lot of the appeals of that early season, the first season at least, and a lot of the mythology building and the more horror type feel, which obviously the show has always been good at anyway, is really satisfying. So that's really great stuff, and it set things up so well. This episode could not have been like a better way to end volume 1, and just set us up so well for volume 2 for the last 2 episodes of the season. I think it's fair to say it's a decent bet that we might end on a cliffhanger this season, because obviously they know that season 5 will be the last season, so I could see them setting what's going to be in season 5 up at the end of the season. But it's exciting stuff, because you've got tension over what's going to happen with Nancy. You've got still a lot of questions, a lot of things to be resolved ultimately. So yeah, really great stuff. Really, really strong stuff. It's been so great having Stranger Things back, because it's one of the rare things. It's an event show, which we very rarely get now, and it just leaves everybody talking, which is exciting stuff. And I will be back soon with the last 2 episodes of this season, so look out for those reviews coming up soon. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe as always. If you want to throw me a little bit of monetary support, you can, for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/boardnow, if you just want to support the channel a little bit, or you can make a one-off donation at the PayPal link. There's a link at the top of my channel if you want to make a one-off donation to the channel. That would be great. But thanks for listening. Keep watching Stranger Things. I'll see you again soon.